Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to OPSABAP session where we are learning the interview questions and answer in the ABAP ritual where different SAP technology we are considering, for example, ABAP, or we are already done with ABAP. Now we are doing the OPSABAP, then we are going to do the ABAP on HANA, ALE docs, and then we'll be doing the OData and a workflow. So as you know that why we started this ABAP ritual session, because of we are working, we are having the sufficient knowledge, but we are not able to go ahead and crack the interview. So cracking the interview is different thing than what we know already. Whenever we have to present our thought in front of interviewer, that should be in a structured way, and then only we are going to impress our interviewer and we are going to be selected over there. So keeping that things in mind, to get our actual value in the market, I started this mission of ABAP ritual so that we can get ourself values, the exact value, even the more value what we are currently. And that's the reason these ABAP rituals are over here. So here we are learning mostly the VVI important questions and answer, and this is going to help us to achieve the career growth in our future. Okay, in the so now let's have a quick recap and we'll go ahead and see the today's VVI interview questions. So here we are going to first you know revise that yesterday we have seen, uh, like when we have the constructor, then in which order, you know in which order we are going to, uh, in which order constructor is going to be get called, right? So we have seen yesterday we have taken some examples over there. So suppose we have the subclass over here and superclass we are having over here, and when we are going to create the object of this class subclass, then in this sequence the constructor is going to get called, right? So different scenario for the constructor hierarchy we have seen. This is the most important one and frequently asked one. Here there are so many, just you can go through the slides, right? Some of the important one we have discussed already yesterday. Now here we have also discussed what is UML diagram and what is the use of this. However, this is not frequently asked, but this can be one of the important interview question. Okay, and here now here also we have seen that, how we can define, how we can represent the public, protected, and private, right? So how to represent class via UML diagram, what is the meaning of symbol plus, minus, and hash. So plus stands for public, minus stands for private, and hash stands for abstract, right? Sorry, static. So this hash stands for protected, not static and all. Here it is there. Okay, hash stands for property and underscore stands for static. So this is the reference. From here you can get the reference. All right, then here we are having the methods, and if something is there in the italic, that the meaning of that means that is there in the abstract. Okay, sorry, abstract, that is there in the abstract. And here we are having the class methods, right? Now what is association relationship, aggregation relationship, and composition relationship? All right, we have seen yesterday, and we understood that association is nothing but a using relationship, aggregation is nothing but a has a relationship, composition is nothing but a must have relationship. So relationship between a building and their rooms is a perfect example of composition relationship, whereas the uh, for here this aggregation relationship, for example here, teacher and school, company and employee, district and their people, right? So this comes under the aggregation, has a relationship. Association using relationship, teacher and student, both way using, right? Teacher using a student using teacher, doctor and patient. So this is using relationship study we have seen in detail. Now casting, very important. Let's start our session with casting. Okay, this the today's session, the new questions. Let's start with the casting. So here, let me make it correct. This one, yeah. So this is very important interview question for the casting, right? Generally in interview, the question is going to be asked like, what is casting and what are the different types of casting, right? In object oriented. So we must have heard about the type casting, right? So when you have to assign the integer data type to the character data type, right? When you have to assign the numeric data type to the integer data type, correct? So such kind of data type casting is known as the type casting. From right side to left side, we are going to cast, we are going to convert, right? So that's the fact about the typecasting, right? So that's the general concept about the typecasting. But when oops abap comes into the picture, when the object oriented abap comes into the picture, there are two types of casting, right? Object, when you are going to cast one object to another object, right? When you are going to cast one object to the reference of another object, that's where the definition of casting lies. Okay, so you can define the definition of casting like this. When we are going to assign object of, when we are going to assign object of one class to the reference of another class or to the object of another class, then this is known as casting. Okay, so here, hope it is clear for you. Object of one class you are going to assign to the object of another class or to the reference of another class. That's the definition of casting. There are two types of casting, narrow casting and wide casting. Now, what do you know about narrow casting and wide casting? Open your chat box and write over here your understanding about narrowing cast. Okay, narrow casting, narrow casting, narrow casting, narrow. So focus on the word narrow. Generally it's confusing, right? But we have to understand here in such a way that we will be able to remember it for longer, or even we will not be able to forget, you know, any time in our life at our dead end. So we have to remember this concept, or for the matter any concept, we are supposed to remember in such a way that it should, you know, it should be rememberable till the last of our life. So in that way, actually, so if you want to remember those concepts, you should be very good, be there in the lexical meaning, sabdik arth. So if you are good in understanding the word, you will be able to remember the concept, you know, very longer. So here, if you talk about the narrowing cast, the word narrow, focus on the word narrow, right? Narrow casting. I got some response over here. Let me check that. Uh, Vishal is telling narrow cast means assigning the object of subclass to reference of superclass. Awesome. Yes. Assign child object to super object. Yes. Why? Narrowing. Which is narrower one? Superclass is having the narrow perspective than the subclass. Subclass is having, right, wider perspective. Correct? Because child is always having the wider perspective. My father, whatever my father is having the asset and all, right? I am also authorized to have all those assets, as well as I will be having some extra assets, some extra, you know, means because I'm child, I'm inheriting from him, correct? So similarly, subclass, the concept of subclass we know, right? subclass is inheriting from the superclass, and that's why subclass is having the wider perspective. So when you are going to assign the wider perspective to the narrow perspective, that's where the word lies narrow casting. Okay, hope it's clear over here, and let's see from this diagram. So here, see, this is the wider perspective. That means this is the subclass. Subclass, cow is the subclass, animal is the superclass, right? So cow is inheriting from the animal class. So when you are going to assign the wider perspective of cow to the narrower perspective of animal, this kind of assignment will be known as the narrow casting, right? So object of cow, we are going to assign the to the reference of animal class, or to the object of animal class, both is fine. So when we assign the object of subclass to the object of superclass, or to the reference of superclass, in both the case it is called narrow casting. And just opposite widening cast, what will be the widening cast then? Widening cast will be just opposite. Right here in the chat box, if you understood about the narrowing cast, then write your answer here in the chat box about the wide casting. What do you understand from wide casting? Opposite, I just told you opposite. Just right here, your understanding in terms of here, what will be here? Wide casting, right? Here, what will be?
Uh, Pankaj,
Yes.
quick question.
Hmm.
Why do we have to do casting? See, the minute you are superclass and subclass, they already have a relationship, right? Why
Hmm.
do you need to do any kind of a casting?
Casting is very important. See, casting is very important. Even if you are able to understand properly the typecasting, right? Why we use the typecasting? Typecasting, why we use when you call any function module, right? When you call any function module, correct? When you are going to call any function module, and if your import parameter, export parameter is not compatible, correct, then what we do that we just convert into their respective import parameter and export parameter, and then we use, right? That's why we use the typecasting. The same way, this here, it is having, there are so many use here in the object oriented of this narrow casting. At many narrow casting, and generally this wide casting is very powerful. Okay, so suppose if you want to access the method of subclass from the superclass, how you can do? Suppose if you want to access the method of subclass from the superclass, how you can do? That's where the narrowing cast comes into the picture. So if you do the narrowing cast, you will be able to access the method of subclass from the superclass. That's the one benefit, right? Here, if you talk about the wide casting, this is very much used, this wide casting. If you don't have the concept of wide casting, we will not fulfill the purpose of object oriented programming. It will be very difficult to achieve the dynamicity. It will be very difficult to achieve the dynamic behavior from the object oriented programming, right? So you must have seen so many times, right, using these symbols, question mark and equal, right? What is this symbol for? Who will tell what is this symbol for? What is the use of this symbol? Right here in the chat box, what is the use of this symbol? Wide casting. Okay, right here in your chat box, what is the use of this symbol? What is the use of this symbol? Okay, see here. So generally the symbol is synonym for, this symbol is synonym of wide casting. However, it is not the actual wide casting. So whenever we have to achieve the wide casting, we go for this particular operator. Okay, we go for this particular operator, question mark equal, right? Question mark equal. What is the meaning of question mark and equal? Let's suppose you have some reference variable over here, ref underscore obj1, and you are going to write over here and then reference underscore obj2. So let's suppose I'm going to remove this reference just to avoid the confusion. Let's suppose we have two object. One is object one, and here you have the object two, right? Here you have object one, and here you have the object two. Now, assume a scenario where, this object two is the superclass of this subclass. Here, this object one is the, let me write first over here. This is class one. Okay, this is class one. This is class one, and this is class two. That is class 1 and this is class 2. This class 2, this class 2 is here. This class 2 is like this. This class 2 is super class of the class 1. Okay, class 1 is the subclass. Okay, class 1 is the subclass. So class 1 is inheriting from the class 2. Or let me make it more clear. Here I'm going to use this as an animal class. Okay, and this is, here we have the cow class. So animal class and cow class I'm having, and here this is the instance of cow, ob underscore cow, sorry, here instance of animal, and here you have the instance of what, you have the instance of ob underscore cow. You have like this in your program. You have written one program, ob underscore cow equals to ob underscore animal, and this ob underscore animal is the returning parameter of a method. Okay, let's suppose this ob underscore animal is the returning parameter of a method. Because this is the returning parameter of a method, right? Because this is the returning parameter of the method. So make sure that you are understanding this concept, otherwise it will be a little difficult to understand over here. I'm trying with my level best to present my understanding over here. So see here, the returning parameter from that object is the object of animal class, right? And this parameter you have to get in the object of cow class, which is the subclass, right? Which is the subclass. If you directly write it over here, this returning parameter, if you directly write it over here and try to assign it over here, it will give you the compile time error. What it will tell, what kind of error it will tell? It will tell that, it will tell that object is not in a scope or it is not compatible. So something like, some compiler error it will give. You can just go and check, it will give the error. Why? Because here you have, cow object here on the left hand side, and here what you have, you have the animal object. So if you would like to try to assign this reference to the subclass over here, then it will give you the error. And by the way, what is this? This is nothing but we are doing the wide casting, right? We are doing the wide casting over here. We are doing the wide casting over here because this is having the wider perspective, wider reference. This is having the wider behavior than the animal class, right? So we are trying to assign the reference of animal to the object of cow, correct? So here we are doing, but it's giving the error. Now, you know that both this if we're going to assign this object to here, it is going to be compatible because this cow is inheriting from the animal class, right? Cow is going to inheriting from the animal class. So you know that if object is going to be, this animal object is going to be assigned to the object of cow class, it is going to be compatible. But compiler is understanding, no, this is a different, this is a different thing. It will not allow, the compiler will not allow. But somehow at runtime, if you are able to assign this over here, it will work. It is not going to go into dump, right? So for that purpose, I'm going to tell to the compiler, I don't know actually what is this object at this point of time. Okay, so I'm giving the question mark over here. So now compiler will understand that this type is exactly not known at this point of time. Okay, so now compiler will assume that developer knows in a better way that at runtime what is its type going to be and whether it is going to be compatible with this or not. So if you give the question mark and equal to, it will ignore that check, it will ignore that assignment check, and it will start stopping the compiler error. So this is not a widening cast operator actually. This is just a symbol, this is just a syntax which helps you to avoid the compiler error. Anywhere you can use this one, it will then not check the type of this and type of this. It will just avoid, and it will at runtime, when you will run your program after activation, then it will check. And if this is the subclass of this, it will be fine. If something else it is going to be, then it will go into dump. So make sure you know this is going to be your subclass of this, then only it will work. And before widening cast, one more thing you'll have to keep in mind, that narrowing cast must be performed, right? So this is little complex concept. Go through there in my video in YouTube, it's free, and there I have tried with my level best to explain by taking one example. It's around 45 minutes of video, and there you will be able to understand in very much detail with the example I have shown, with the help of a example over there. So you can go and learn from there, or else you can subscribe to my Oops ABAP course. There also I have discussed in detail. Fine. So this is casting, and there are two types of casting: narrow casting and wide casting. Is it clear for everybody, or do you want me to explain more? All right, so from interview point of view, you have to remember only only few things. Okay, from interview point of view, you have to remember only few things. If you're not able to understand at this point of time, I would highly recommend you to go through the video and try to understand from there, or search through some different blogs on internet. You will certainly able to understand. Okay, but from interview point of view, you'll have to remember this wide casting and narrow casting. How we will remember? It's very easy, right? I told you the how to remember, right? So narrow casting means you are assigning the wider perspective to the narrower perspective. If you just tell this much, interviewer will understand. Okay, you are having the understanding of the narrow casting, right? So narrower perspective means you are going to assign the object of subclass to the reference of superclass, or to the object of superclass. Or in a simple way, very simple way, just you tell object, assigning the object of subclass to the object of superclass. That's it. That is the narrow casting. Wide casting means assigning the just opposite, assigning the object of superclass to the object of a subclass. That is the wide casting. And before wide casting, you must have narrow casting. This is very important. Otherwise, it will go into the exception. If you don't do the narrow casting first, and without doing the narrow casting, if you perform the wide casting, then it will go into the exception, right? It will go into the exception. So that sometimes interviewer also will ask that question, that if you don't perform the narrow casting before the wide casting, then what will happen? You'll have to tell some cx type casting error, something like that, some exception comes. Okay, you can go and check from the Naimesh Patel blog. There it is written, or in the video also I have the one which I have created on the YouTube, or in my course it is
Okay,
there. Yeah, please tell me. Yes. Yes, go ahead. Who is this?
Pankaj, if
Yeah.
you want to
Uh,
assign the other way around, the animal to cow, it's also the same case, same syntax.
I didn't get you. What's your question? Animal?
So, okay, here you put that OB cow is equal to question mark equal, right? Animal is equal to OB cow. Then
Uh,
also use the same syntax.
no, no. For narrowing casting, simply this one. OB underscore animal equal operator. OB
Oh, okay,
underscore animal equal to OB underscore cow. Okay, this only will have to give.
okay,
Okay. OB underscore animal equal to
okay.
OB underscore cow. This is supported. This is narrow casting, and this is widening cast, wide casting. So before wide casting, you must have to perform the narrow casting. Now you might be getting confused. Then why to do, right? Go through the video, you'll understand. Okay, why to do. So such kind of question is natural, right? Why to do narrow casting and then again wide casting? You will come across many such scenario. That's why it is very much useful concept. Okay, so and if you write some program in object oriented, and if you would like to call some class methods or object methods, then while returning its value, and if you want to achieve the dynamic behavior, right? So if you remember that in our class many times we have used this one in the design pattern, this wide casting operator, right? Many times we have used this one. Why?
Right, right,
Due
right.
to that only. That was the main reason. So when we start using in when we start writing the program in object oriented, you will come across the wide casting, like wide casting concept. You will realize that how it is useful, like, and when it is. So it will take some time. Just go through that video, you will be able to understand. Okay, or go through my design pattern video, you will see the real time example where we can use this one. Now let's go ahead. Again, is it same question? What is the different types of casting? Yeah, this is the same question again, so we can maybe ignore, but uh, let's have this is here in the question format. Very important, very important. If you're going for the object oriented interview, this question is going to be asked. 99% chances are there to be asked this question, right? 99% chances are there to be asked this question. Okay, now here, okay, so here, see here, again, what is widening cast? Explain in detail, right? So here, I have tried to understand in the pictorial representation, right? Here we are having the subclass. It is having the more information, more method, more properties, more detail, right? So widening cast means we are widening the perspective, right? So from superclass to subclass, right? Here you can see. So the same thing, just you can ignore this one. Let's go ahead. Multiple inheritance, this also we have seen. I'm going to delete these slides, this is not required. We have already seen many times this one. How can we achieve the multiple inheritance? With the help of interface we can. This will be a kind of revision, let it be like this. Okay, we have so many times seen that how we can achieve the multiple inheritance, right? With the help of interface. So this is the answer. With the help of interface you can achieve. How you can achieve with the help of interface? Very easy. All right, very easy. Just you have to put inside the interface section the name of the interface, and your interface of course is going to have multiple methods, right? So if you just simply tell the with the help of interface, this is very frequently asked question. Don't ignore this question. It will boost up your confidence, and answer is very simple, right? Very simple answer, and it will increase your confidence. Just you'll have to tell whenever your interviewer is going to ask how to achieve the multiple inheritance. First, you have to remember he will ask in this way: how many types of inheritance are there present in object oriented? You will have to tell multiple and multi-level. Then he will tell object oriented above supports which kind of inheritance. You have to tell only multi-level. Then you will tell why not multiple, right? So why not multiple? There is no perfect answer for this. right? SAP have has not given this feature to use directly, but what we can tell that, that because SAP has not given this feature, we cannot use, but we have a workaround for this. So he will tell what is the workaround. You have to tell, with the help of interface you can achieve multiple inheritance, right? With the help of interface you can achieve multiple inheritance. Very simple answer. Just remember interface and you are going to impress your interviewer. Events in class, right? Events in class. What are the events in class? Is there any events in the class, right? Is there any events in the class? So when we are going to have class defined over there, do we have any events in the class, right? Yes. In the object oriented programming language, we have the concept of events. Okay. In classical report, if you remember, we have load of program initialization at selection screen. All right. Or if you have done the programming in SAP UI5, right? Front end technology, there also on the mouse click, we have to take some certain action. So my mouse click is an event, right? So like that, there can be multiple events. So events is nothing but a kind of action which is responsible to generate another action. Okay, which is causing another action. A action which cause another action. That's the meaning of event, right? So here load of program. This is a event. Initialization. This is a event, right? So this is for the classical report. This is for the interactive report. This is for the module pool programming event, right? PAI, PBO, POH, POV. But in events of the object oriented programmings, how it is going to look like, right? How it is going to look like. So for that purpose, if you have created earlier events in your object-oriented programming language, right, there is a checkbox. Just we have to, first we have to go into the event section, right, and there we'll have to create the event. There is a checkbox in the event from where you can relate the event handler method, right? So this is about the event. Let us see if some, yeah, here it is more concrete way. So events in class we are going to discuss, but these are the events in procedural ABAP. Procedural ABAP. Okay. Come over here. Let's try to, define the events in object oriented. So an event is an action used for providing dynamic feature for application. So you can tell like this. Okay. Definition of event. Here here this is how in object oriented programming language we create the event, and and we associate a method with a event. So when we take any action on the event, or when we register that event, right, the respective method is going to be called. So how to call the respective method? Suppose you have an event and you have registered that event. So some of the here important point we have, some of the important interview question we have. Let me show you those interview question first. I'm going to create one more slides over here. I will ask the question, just try to give the answer over here, right? So how in object oriented programming language one event work? So when we tell that a event work, how in object oriented programming language, right? So the sense comes over here that when we take any action, right, the corresponding, when we take any action, the corresponding behavior need to be triggered, right? So that corresponding behavior will be where? So that behavior we define in the method. So this is your method, right? And here you create one event. Here you create one event. So just here, this is the event and this is the method, right? This is the event and this is the method. So when you are going to take any action, right, event is nothing but action. So corresponding to the action, you want to perform some behavior. So that behavior you are going to write in this method, right? And this event can be there. This event and method can both be there in the same class, or this is also possible that this event can come from the other class and this method can come from the other class. Means event and method both can come from the different class, right? Then the question is how you will register, right? So whenever you have to, uh, when you call this event, when you raise this event, then this method need to be called. So what is the syntax? How it is possible when we raise this event, then this method need to be called. For that purpose, what step we have to follow? Okay. So the question, the interview, this question can be like this: when a method is triggered, when an event is fired. Okay. When a method is triggered, when an event is fired in oops, right? Object oriented programming. So JavaScript here, there in the SAP UI also JavaScript is object oriented programming language, right? So all the UI5 framework has been written in JavaScript programming language, and that's where the event becomes more feasible over there. So here, just tell me the answer of this question. This is one important interview question, that when a method is triggered, when a method is triggered, right? Not when, I have to write how a method is triggered when an event is fired, right? So what necessary step I have to follow so that when I take any action, my method should be triggered. Suppose if you have a hotspot defined in the ALV, right? So when you click on that hotspot, I want to trigger my method. So for that purpose, what you have to do, right here, your answer in the chat box. What necessary step we have to follow? What necessary step we have to follow? So I got one answer over here. Yes, awesome. So you have to register. So your answer, just tell to your interviewer that we must have to register the method with the events, right? Right. So just I'm sharing this knowledge that how to register your, method with the event. So set handler, and this is your handler method. So this is your method here. Okay. For here you have the multiple like all instances, or you can give some specific instance. Okay. Some specific instance means some specific object. So if you want to register, so if you want to, fire this method for any of the object, so you have to write the all instances, or if you want to fire for a specific object, you'll have to give the name of a specific object. So very simple syntax for registering the, you know, uh, registering the method. Now syntax for event. Okay. So we generally, or just go and check syntax for event. Or it's easy. Just you'll have to write something, events, name of the events, for name of the uh, class. Okay. And importing parameter only will have to give, not exporting. Event only takes the importing parameter. Okay. So that is not very much important. The syntax and all the things, this can be important. Event syntax is not that much important from interview point of view, but that is very frequently asked, that is very frequently used. Okay. That is very frequently used in our programming. So it's better if you know. So I will just write it over here, events. Okay. So if it is a class event, you will have to write the class event. Class event is nothing but the static event, right? So if we're going to write with like this class events, right? So you know that whenever we use the class keyword, that is used for the static, like class data, class method, right? So whenever we have to define the static method, the static attribute, right? So for that purpose we use the class. So if we're going to use the class events, it will become the static events. Okay, I'm going to use simply the event. That means it is now what? Object, instance event. So give the name of the event, event name, event name. Here you'll have to give the event name. For here you'll have to give the uh, this is the event for. I'm just missing the syntax. I think here I have written set handler. Yeah, here. So just events name you can give, and exporting values it is there. But suppose if you have some different class, here you'll have to write something like this, event for, and I think this is a class name. Just check once. I don't remember exactly, but here you will be always having, the exporting keyword, not the importing keyword. Always it is having the exporting keyword, because event is always having the, always it will, you know event will always export the parameter. It will never import the parameter. So like this, see, exporting values, you will not see that, importing. But for defining the event, this is the simple way. I think of and all is not required over here. Even this for and all is not required. Simply you'll have to give the, yes, that is true. Just you give the event name and exporting, and after the exporting you have to give the parameter name. Okay, so it is always going to have the exporting parameter, and then the event handler method, that to define is little tricky. So if you want to create the event handler method, this is the syntax over here. This is the syntax. Okay, this is the event, and here you have the event handler, right? For event of CL underscore main. So like that, we define the event handler method. Go through that video, it will be more clear over there. This is a big example. That the same example I have tried to make you understand in the YouTube and in the course. The course example will be little different, but in the YouTube, you know, both will be a kind of similar. You will be able to understand from there. Okay, it's the easy one, not very difficult. Now let's go. And so the important question from the event is that how to register an event. So you can write set handler and give the handler method, and for the instances, that is the one. For all instances, for all the instances, just we have discussed event registration and deregistration. So suppose if you want to deregister one event, so how you can, deregister the event, right? So for deregistering the event, for that also we have the, we have a syntax. So I will tell you that syntax. Actually here I have written that syntax. You'll have to write at last activation, and then see here, this one. If you just write activation space, so here see, I'm registering, and if you just give activation space, then the event will be deregistered. Okay, so if you're going to give the activation space, then your event is going to be deregister. Again, if you want to register the event, right here, activation abap underscore true. So if you don't give anything while registering, automatically it will take activation abap underscore true. That means it will activate. And suppose if you want to deregister, then you will have to use this activation and then space. So this is one important point. If you want, you can remember. Otherwise, I have not come across such kind of question. But the registering the method, that one is important. So these are the different program. Some program for the events and all. You can just go and have for the reference. Okay, events with parameter and events handler method. That's fine. So let's see some point over here. An event can have only export parameter, just we have seen, right? It will be only passed by value. The event will be only having the export parameter of type pass by value. Pass by reference is not supported in the event, right? All the export parameter of the events can be there as import parameter of the event handler method. Yeah, that's true, because whenever you are going to define one event handler method, the export parameter of the event must be there as a import parameter of the event handler method. That's the point over here. Event handler method importing parameters can't have types, right? Event handler method importing parameters can't have types. You don't have to define the type for the event handler method, right? So here you can see that here there is no type, right? Here there is no type. This type will take from here. Type I is here, integer type. So this type will be determined from here itself. So in the event handler method, you don't have to give the type. So this is the one. Good. Let me delete this one from interview point of this is and all not required. So I'm going to optimize this PPT for interview purpose only. And if you want complete PPT, that I have already shared with you, right? And this updated one also I'll be sharing for all instances. Let me delete this one also. You know that for all instances, why we use the for all instances. This also is not required. Yeah, let it be this one for quick reference. Events, registration and deregistration, right? See here. So both way. So if you want to deregister the event abap underscore false, you have to write at last or a space. So if you write abap underscore false, that is also fine. Or if you write a space, both will work fine. Or if you want to register the event, just write set handler, or you write set handler for all instances, activation abap underscore true. So activation abap underscore true is going to be by default. If you don't give this, that is present over there. Okay, so that's why we have written, that's why we have written over here. So set handler for all instances, activation abap underscore true. And here you can see the note. If you don't specify activation abap underscore true, then also no problem, by default it takes, right? So generally we don't write this one when we have to register the event. Simply this much is sufficient, right? For all instances or for the name of the object. Okay, so let it be like this for our reference. And now click on the save button, and one event multiple handler method. Yeah, so one event can be associated with the multiple handler method, right? And if you want to see in what sequence your method is going to be triggered, so it depends in what sequence it is registered, right? So it depends on the registering. So one click event you have, let's suppose you have a click event over here. You have a click event, and if we are going to if we're going to click on this, if we're going to click this button, then what it will trigger? Suppose here one method, then you have another method. So this is the method one, and this is the method two, and again you have some method 3, method 4, like that. So when you are going to raise this event, right, how another important question was how to trigger a method associated with an event, right? So which command we are going to use? This is simple question, just give the answer. What syntax or command? We have discussed already here many times, just you have to give the answer. What syntax or command need to be used to trigger the method? Obviously event handle method, right? So answer is raise event. Yeah, very good. So raise, right? Raise keyword. So just you will have to write raise, and here you'll have to give the event name, right? So when you are going to write raise event name, so event is nothing but over here click, right? So we are going to raise the event called click. Suppose multiple methods are registered with this click. So in what sequence it will be called? The sequence in which it is registered, right? The sequence in which it is registered. So suppose this one first registered, this is secondly registered. So first this one will be executed, and second this one will be executed. So this is the point. A static event, right? A static event, it is the same as the static a static method, right? uh, see here. So inside the static event, instance event cannot be raised. So these are the some points. You can go through these points. Questions, give the answer. See here, some questions over here we are having. Can you raise the static event inside the instance method? Right? So can you raise the static method inside the instance method? Can you raise the static event inside the instance method? Yes, that is possible. But inside the static method, you cannot raise the instance event. Okay. Okay. So this is the first question. Second question, can you raise the instance event inside the instance method? Yes, possible. Can you raise the instance event inside the static method? No. Big no. No, big no, right? inside all the inside all the static component of a class, we cannot use the instance component. Okay. General principle, fundamental principle, we know this one, and based upon that this answer is all the answer over here based upon that principle only. Can a handler method be a static or instance? Both, right? It can be both. Does the handler method opened on event type? Does the handler method depend on event type, a static event or instance event? I mean, any syntax change in that case or any limitation with respect to event? Answer, except the sender parameter, no other difference. Sender will be supported by the instance event only. So here, actually, what I'm trying to tell, however, this question is not very much important, but let's try to understand what I'm trying to tell it over here. Okay. So meaning over here means, does the handler method depend on the event type? So how many types of event we have? A static event or instance event. There are two types of event we have, right? A static event and instance event. So suppose if you have the static event, right? Suppose if you have the static event, can you use the static method as a handler method for a static event? Yes, that is possible. For a static event, can you use the instance method? Yes, that is also possible, right? That is also possible. So it does not depend. Answer will be it. General answer you have to tell, it does not depend. Okay, it does not depend. Okay. In the terms of syntax, this is quite tricky. It will take some time for me to make you understand. Leave this part, or you go through my video which is there in the course. I have explained this part in more detail, but the simple answer over here is no. Just remember this. For this, I'm going to remove this one to make it simpler. If you want to understand this part in more detail, you'll have to subscribe my course over there, which is not mandatory, and that question is not going to be asked frequently also, but this is important. Does the handler method depend on the event type? No, it does not depend. You can use any kind of. Okay. Events is of two types, a static event and instance event. Here you are having the syntax. See here the difference, right? If you have to register the parameter, this is how you are going to, register. Method, in which type of the method event will be raised, right? So this is the difference, just to go through this difference. And today we'll stop it over here, and let me see the alias and all. So most of the fundamentals, the fundamental questions we are covered. So all the fundamentals of ABAP I have covered, and mostly the question is going to come from this, whatever we have covered, the fundamentals. So first 50 slides is important till here. First 50 slides is important. Other, I think, you know but in another, like in the design pattern, again, like singleton design, factory design, those are going to be important. So we'll be going through that, and whatever the important, I'm going to take. Alias and all is not important. Just I have exception. If you want to learn, you can learn from my video course. Whatever the important here in this uh, VVI point of view. So here, this is how your exception is there. So this is not required from interview point of view. What is the difference between raising keyword and raise keyword? This is also not required from interview point of view. Exception class, fine. There are two types of exception. This can be one interview question, that how many types of exception are there. So one is the class based exception, and there is a non-class based exception. So whatever we use in, in function module and all, those are the non-class based exception. right? And class based exception generally we use in the object oriented programming language, right? CXI zero divide. So every class, every exception in the OOPS is having. So who will tell what is the root class? What is the root class, or what is the fundamental class for all the exception classes, right? What is the very first class, very first class or root class for exception class? Who will tell? Exception class, right? What is that name of the class? Who will tell over here? Any one of you know? Harkesh, Ganesh, Jayant. Okay, just try writing your answer. So the answer will be CX underscore root. Yeah, Vishal. Awesome. Yes, CX underscore root. So this is going to be your answer. So this can be your interview question. Okay, CX underscore root. But I will not put into the VVI and all, but this can be, this can be. The VVI, widening cast, narrowing cast, those are the questions, the difference between abstract class and interface. These are the very, very, frequently asked question, and people expect to give you that answer. Custom exception class, yes. OTR based message, and so you can create your own custom class, right? There are two types, OTR based and message class based. Okay, so this again can be interview question, but it is not frequently asked or never come across as question. Leave that for your knowledge, you can have. What is this cleanup command, right? What is this cleanup command? So this cleanup command, when you are going to exit from the life cycle of your program, right? When your object is going to be exit from its own life cycle, then this cleanup command, this the cleanup, you know this cleanup syntax, if you're going to write some code under this cleanup, this is going to be triggered. So whenever your object is at your last step, when your object is going to be, you know everything we have done, and at last, suppose everything, if you and if you want to free memory, right, and if you want to free some object in that program, at that point of time, this cleanup can be used in order to free up the memory. Okay, so it is to restore the object status, free up the external resources or internal resources. So external resources or internal resources means memory, some, some data you have been holding over there, you can free up those. You can and if you want to restore the status of the object, for that purpose also it can be used. But for the simple answer, if you want to free up some resources, if you want to free up some memory, this cleanup can be used, right? So right here, what is the use of cleanup command, right? Cleanup syntax. So answer, to free the memory or internal or external resources. Okay, at least you have to tell to free the memory. If you tell this much, use this free word, free, to free the memory. Your interview will understand. Okay, fine, he knows. Catch before unwind, we will not discuss over here. And object services, yeah, object services, three types of important object services. These are the advanced ops object or advanced ops concept, right? This but the generally question comes from this persistent services. Many a times in Accenture interview, if you have attended over there, and if you are willing to go into the object oriented, right, some project, there they ask the question, what is the persistence class, right? They don't talk about this transaction and query, but it again depends on the what kind of interviewer, right? If he knows, or if requirement is something like that in the project, right, we don't know exactly. It depends on the interviewer mode, and if he knows this concept, they can ask. But this is the important one, okay, which is the frequently used, the persistent class. persistent class. What is the persistence class and how it is used? We'll see that the persistence class and persistence class related questions and answer, and then probably we'll directly move to the singleton, and we'll try to complete tomorrow object oriented programming questions and answer. Let me just have a quick look. What are those persistence we have? Protected, this base, actor. Okay. Okay, so this is the concept of persistence. Fine. This I will just cover in brief. Transaction services is not required. Standard code. Transaction services we will not cover. Interface we know already. And then design pattern. Yeah, in design pattern we are going to see that some of the design pattern from where the question is going to be asked very frequently. One of the most frequently asked question from the design pattern is going to be the singleton design pattern. Okay, so that we will understand in detail. And if you are very good in singleton design pattern, you know, out of 5 or 10, means out of, let's suppose out of 10 interview, at least 7 or 8 interview question will be asked if you are appearing for object oriented programming language interview, because this is very frequently asked question. So that we'll see in detail. Design pattern, these are the many design pattern I have discussed in the course. We will not discuss all those here. Singleton we will discuss, very frequently asked this one, singleton pattern. Example of singleton pattern, another way to achieving singleton. Factory design pattern, factory also will discuss. This is again abstract. Factory will not discuss this one. Factory will see. And object and reference, what is this? Object and reference. Okay, not a problem, we have already discussed this one. Class object and references. MVC is required. I don't think so, but let it be like this. Proxy design pattern. Okay, you'll understand its concept. That's it. However, not a very important, you know, interview questions. Proxy design pattern. Okay, fine, let us see. So there are so many things, right? We will just discuss those important points, and I think tomorrow we'll complete this object oriented one or two more class, and object oriented programming related interview questions answer will be completed, and then later we will move on the ABAP on HANA. Okay, so are you guys feeling this session important, effective, and fruitful? Is it adding value in your learning? Is it increasing your confidence, or is it suffice? Is it making the purpose of doing this ABAP ritual session over? How many of you are interested? How many of you are agree with this, like means just I want to know your view, whether it is helping you, this session is adding you in adding you the value in your knowledge, right? Just I want to know. So just write here in the chat box if it is adding value and it's going to be beneficial, so it will be a kind of motivation for me, right? It will be a fuel for me, because these all things are going to be free, right? I'm not taking any charges. On Zoom I have to pay like around 2000 rupees per month, but still I'm doing, because this is required. The one main reason for doing all these things also to make aware to the people that I can uh, add the value effectively, and if someone is willing to have the session with me, they can go ahead with me, right? But at the same time, I want to get all this done by adding the value. Okay, so only three people is finding beneficial, other people is feeling something like yeah, fine. Yes. So if something you are feeling beneficial, just write over here. You should motivate the people in front of you. If he's doing hard work, he's keep on adding the value without asking anything, right? So you should motivate at least, right? You should motivate at least. Keep don't keep quiet, right? Come ahead and appreciate me, come ahead and motivate me. I also motivate you, right? So you have to motivate me also. I also require motivation in order to do all these things. Otherwise it is not possible to come up every day without any thing, right? So thank you very much for your nice response and your great motivation. It's really inspirational for me. And Oops Abap most probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow will be completing. All other things is not required from interview point of view. However, for learning point of view, if you want, there are so many things. Those are good things if you're going to, learn, that is going to obviously make your confidence up to next level, and it's going to add enormous value in your profile. Okay. And if something is valuable, right, of course you are going to get a lot of benefit for that, right? So good hike, good confidence, good self-esteem, all these are required. So soft skills are more important than the hard skill. Soft skills are more important than the technical skills. Okay. So keeping all these things in the mind, and you have and thank you so much for your nice comment over here. I'm really glad that you are finding this session helpful over here, and you are learning. I'm able to add value in your profile, value in your learning. And with this note, let's wrap up our session over here. Today there is no interview. Now we will keep interview on alternate days. So maybe tomorrow we are going to have, and tomorrow get ready for giving and taking the interview. So tomorrow we are going to have the interview. Fine then. With this, let's stop our session over here. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. Any question if you have, please feel free to ask. If you want to discuss, please feel free to discuss. Okay. You can also give me the feedback which I can improve myself. Means I would also love you to get the feedback by the way I can improve. I will be really so much happy. Because it will help me to improve. So it's very polite and humble and generous, and very uh, 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 the very this request is from the bottom of my heart. You please give me the response. How can I improve? You give me the feedback how I can do more better in terms of delivering the value, in terms of delivering the content. You can just give me the feedback anywhere on the LinkedIn. Also you can give me the feedback what I have to improve. I will not feel bad, or if some people is going to read that one, I don't mind. Okay. I have to improve myself. I know that I have a lot of a problem that I have to improve, and this I can know with the help of you. So please give me the feedback along with positive. Please give me the negative feedback as well, so that I can improve. The real feedback it should be. Don't go and simply write anything negative. It should be real, which I need to work upon really. Okay. So with this, I think I'm done from my side. If you have any question, please feel free to ask or feel free to discuss. Or if you want to give me some feedback to improve, you can give me. Or if you want to make like, if you think that this session can be better in this way more, that idea also you can share over here, so we can make this session more effective, more better, and we all can get more fruit out from this session. So if any suggestion like that, if you feel, please feel free to you know give those suggestion. We all together will incorporate, right? We all are the part of this group. I'm only the person who is taking responsibility, but we all are contributing, right? I can see so many people ask the question, and you people take participate in giving the answer. I don't get the time to give the answer, but whenever I get the time, I also give the answer over there. So we are a family over there, and we are helping to each other. It's really awesome. It's a wonderful, right? So if you feel that we can improve in this way or that way, please feel free to discuss. You can call me individually also. We can talk privately also if you don't feel comfortable to talk in public, right? So that is also fine for me. Okay. So thank you so much for attending the session, and let's meet tomorrow. Bye bye, have a nice day.